to public session and advise that members will be broadcast in public session and will be recorded and broadcast through Parliament buildings. At the stage, can I welcome Cheyenne Mahaffey, who's on work experience with me. You're very welcome this morning, Cheyenne, and I'm sure the committee are delighted to have you. Can I formally welcome Mr. Doug Beattie as a member of the committee. Doug, your experience and dedication will be much needed at this committee, so you're very much welcome along. At this stage, I'll take apologies firstly from Mr. Middleton, whose wife had a baby last night, so he's otherwise engaged. So we'll send the best wishes on behalf of the committee to Mr. Middleton. Do we have any declarations of interest, members?
I just two kids and students.
Yes, of course.
Students, yeah.
And receipt of a student loan, which I'm paying off and probably will be for some time. So.
No problem. Okay, chairperson's business members, just to note that I'm speaking tomorrow at an Advice NI Living Wage event in the Long Gallery. Members are of course welcome to attend, and Minister Murphy will also be speaking at the event. Page 7 on your pack, members, is the minutes from our deliberations last week. Are members content that they're a true and accurate reflection of that meeting? Thank you. Any matters arising from those members? None. Okay. We'll then move to item 6, good jobs, oral evidence from the Nevin Economic Research Institute. Members will now hear from Dr. Lisa Wilson in respect of what is meant by good jobs and the implication for public economic policy. I refer members to a briefing paper from Dr. Wilson at page 28, a recent paper from NERI and UCD on job quality in the Republic of Ireland at page 36, a NISRA publication on work quality in Northern Ireland at page 136, previous related departmental correspondence at page 163, and a copy of the Minister's Economic Vision Statement at page 169. Dr. Wilson, you're very welcome. You'll be familiar to many members, particularly those who sit on the Finance Committee with your other hat on. You're very much welcome here to the committee, and we're looking forward to hearing from you, so I'll hand over to you if you're content.
Thanks very much for having me along. I'll start just by introducing myself. I'm Lisa Wilson. I am Senior Economist in the Nevin Economic Research Institute. I have been working on the area of job quality throughout my time in the NERI since 2016, and previously had done research in that as part of my PhD research. And have obviously recently been appointed by Conor Murphy as independent expert on his pillar of good jobs. I would like to emphasise I'm not here to speak on behalf of the department. I am here to speak as an independent expert in this area, and happy to kind of speak to to the advice that I've been given to the department. But at no point am I here to defend or make points in relation to the department. So in terms of the job quality, so why is job quality important, or kind of the framing of this currently as good jobs? So while the creation of good jobs is crucial, the creation of jobs, is crucial, an exclusive focus on the number of jobs can neglect critical aspects that contribute to the overall well-being of workers and the productivity of our economy. And in recent years, we've seen governments, policymakers across the globe have been consistently coming to endorse this area. They do so because good quality work is one of the main principles for resolving many of the challenges that confront our countries. The requirement to generate strong, sustainable, inclusive economic growth, to provide necessary revenues to support public finances, to sustain people's quality of life and well-being, and to underpin our democratic institutions and governance. In recent years, job quality has become increasingly central to Northern Ireland's policy-making agenda, and since 2015 there has been a notable emphasis on job quality through various different political agreements, strategic documents, works of various different departments, and it's situated right the way through. For instance, the Fresh Start Agreement of 2015 reiterated the necessity of creating more and better jobs to bolster economic resilience and social stability. This commitment was echoed by the then Minister for Economy, Simon Hamilton, who emphasised job creation and better jobs upon assuming his office in 2016. The draft programme for government in 2016 again articulated this vision. It came back into the outcome programme for government, the draft programme for government outcomes framework, the 2016 to 21 one. At that stage, the development was to develop a better jobs index. This never came to fruition, but the core objective of enhancing job quality remained. This came back in the New Decade New Approach Agreement and solidified this agreement. The recent 10X economy again had a focus on better jobs and good jobs, and most recently in early 2024 the Minister for Economy, Conor Murphy, has outlined his vision and included good jobs as key to a prosperous economy. So yesterday Conor Murphy announced his definition of good jobs, and he has put into place the Carnegie framework as the guideline to on which he will take up the conceptualisation of job quality. This framework is comprehensive and multidimensional. It integrates both intrinsic and extrinsic dimensions, and it's a very helpful first step in bringing much needed clarity to the discussion around job quality and good jobs. And it brings forward the following attributes as assessing the framework of the quality of jobs: pay, job security, work-life balance, skills and progression, employee voice and representation, health and safety, and social support and relationships. By adopting the Carnegie framework, Minister Murphy underscores the importance of both economic and non-economic attributes of good jobs, and this definition aims to provide future policies to ensure that Northern Ireland jobs are not just plentiful but also of high quality. Minister Murphy has announced the conceptual framing, after which development does need to look at the measurement stage. This will involve decisions in around indicators to be used to assess the various different aspects identified in the conceptual framework, but also the source of the data. NISRA employs currently 11 work quality indicators, and whilst these indicators are broadly recognised in Northern Ireland, my concern with these existing indicators is that they are ambiguous in terms of the selection criteria as to why the indicators are there, in terms of the link to best practice, but also that they're singular in nature. So job quality and that various different aspects and attributes it is a very complex and multifaceted concept. So to get at attributes for a single indicator is a challenging. But there is significant data limitations at present which prevent a comprehensive assessment of job quality. So from a political accountability standpoint, it is prudent that in yesterday's announcement, Conor Murphy has made the decision to move forward with a focus on a smaller number of indicators for which we do have data: pay, minimum guaranteed hours, and job security. This approach avoids the risk of it being ambiguous and opaque or vague. But we also do need a bespoke survey and refining the indicators based on the best practice to ensure a holistic assessment of job quality. And I'll just finish then on the measurement of good jobs. So it's crucial to use indicators that provide a comprehensive assessment and view of the overwhelming kind of the complex nature of this, without using too many indicators. So what we measure really matters. For example, assessing something as complex as work-life balance requires more than just counting the number of hours that you work. It should consider other factors about whether or not your work spills into your life, and the ability for you to manage the demands alongside your personal life. Measuring job quality isn't just about classifying work as good or bad. It's about understanding how different characteristics interact within specific occupations, and this nuanced approach will allow targeted policy interventions to enhance job quality. So the measurement task is, I suppose, the conceptual task is to reveal the various ways in which the good and the bad characteristics of jobs combine. And by pursuing that, we can kind of move beyond this binary classification as a good job being this, or a bad job being this, and more kind of to think about job quality as existing on a spectrum and on a ladder where jobs move up the spectrum or this ladder. And I'm happy to get into that in the questions. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Wilson. So how are you finding being a critical friend?
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's it's involving a lot of talking to people who I traditionally wouldn't have spoken with. There's a lot of interest in the area of good jobs. I think the conceptualisation taken is a good one because people get the concept. They get the need for good jobs. And I think all around it's been, a positive kind of discussion, and both engaging with the department and also with the wider stakeholders there's a real want to take this policy agenda forward.
How much time are you having to devote to this role?
In kind of putting into, whenever we were put into place, it kind of this was vague, and the department has always been clear about, if at any stage this becomes too demanding, that should stop. I suppose I would say that I work in the area of job quality as research, so kind of in many ways the work that I'm doing aligns with my job, with my day-to-day job, so to speak. So it's difficult for me to, we're also a think tank who engages with policy, and so it's difficult for me to separate out the two.
Of course. And listen, you were an excellent appointment, but I'm just wanting to understand, obviously these aren't public appointments, so how does the process work to become a critical friend?
One of my fellow critical friends, Connor Patterson, is very good in answering this. He says, we weren't brought into a room, the four of us. I knew David Jordan through, again, my work, but the four of us weren't brought into a room and, hidden some cabal. It was, as far as I understand it, I am an expert in this area.
You certainly are.
And I was put into position because of recognition of my expertise in that area.
Perfect. And then just in relation to the comment you made about the Minister's announcement yesterday, that hasn't quite trickled down to this committee yet, or me as chair haven't been informed of that. So could you maybe talk to that a bit? Yeah,
so Connor made the announcement at an LRA event yesterday, and then it has been put on the Department for Economy's website.
Okay. So apologies, I haven't logged on to the Economy website this morning. What does he say in that?
So he has made the announcement, what the definition basically that he's taken forward, the conceptual framework of good jobs, which is following the Carnegie Trust framework.
Yes.
People might be aware of the Carnegie Trust framework because that's the framework that was taken through the procurement process, or through the procurement, and also from the Carnegie Trust, being involved in work in Northern Ireland. So he's taken forward that framework as the basis on which he is conceptualising good jobs.
And that moves away then from these indicators that NISRA has previously had in place?
Well, I suppose the NISRA indicators were never, either by Conor Murphy or previous ministers, taken as the indicators of job quality. They sort of arrived during the periods in which the executive was collapsed, and this is an area that continuously kept coming back on. And as far as I understand, NISRA done that because they've seen the demand for this, and also the broader labour market statistics. So, and there was indicators within the labour market survey that they could do so.
And then just in relation to the conceptualisation, so I think you've said like a ladder, so you go up a rung for every element that the minister has outlined yesterday, is that right? Or
no. Okay. So we have a conceptual framework now.
Okay.
That's different from the measurement. So we have a conceptual framework which identifies 7 different attributes or aspects which the department is taking forward as the areas in which they are pursuing their job quality work on. That's different from the measurement of job quality in the sense that we now need indicators for each of the different dimensions. So what Minister Murphy has made clear in his announcement yesterday, for example, on the pay one, his indicator for pay is going to be the real living wage.
Okay.
So that, across some of the other different attributes, we don't have the existing data. So the job will be to build. We do have limited information, limited data. Currently, the NISRA indicators are trying to take what's available in NISRA, within the labour force survey. But there is a need to to look at best practice, and that's been my advice to the department, is to look at the best practice in terms of the indicators that are used for the different attributes, and to develop the indicators for some of the other attributes for which we don't have data.
So obviously a lot of this is conceptualisation, so how does the average person then go and be able to then judge for themselves using a framework or data to say, yep, I have a good job, or I don't have a good job?
So Conor Murphy has decided to take forward 3 different aspects. So the real living wage, the job percentage in temporary employment is the job security, and then minimum guaranteed hours.
Okay.
So there will be data available on that as the percentage, so that is the basis on which the current measurement is, being based on, and the basis on which, the percentage of people in a good job or not in a good job.
Perfect, thank you. Sinead?
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. Nice to see you again. In the Working for Ireland, or in Ireland survey results, it was very, very clear that where you live matters. And how can good jobs contribute to regional balance? And also, in the pursuit of data, will the data be broken down by regions? And will we be able to really clearly see where good jobs are currently, and what interventions will be required in order to deliver good jobs to those areas? So I'll leave you with the regional stuff, but I have another wee question to ask after that.
Yeah, where you live does matter. So what Sinead referred to was the Working in Ireland survey. I was involved with a large-scale survey which looked at working conditions in the Republic of Ireland, and the findings from that show that there was real differences based on where you lived to the quality of job that you had. What we did in that analysis was, rather than thinking about you have a good job if you have, a particular pay, or if you have a good job if you have this, and kind of thinking about it in a singular dimensional way, what we did was a worker experiences job, their work in the round is the combination of all their characteristics which determines the quality of their job. Most jobs have good and bad. It's the extent to which you have good and poor quality attributes which overall determines the quality of your job. But what we found was that in particular regions that you were more likely to have poor quality jobs. And this was as much about the sectoral and occupational makeup of our economy, of the Irish economy, as anything else. So in any kind of development of any survey, I would be recommending that we would need desegregation at a regional level to be able to really analyse that, because it's only through doing that can you actually understand this, understand where the problems lie, and then seek to utilise policy to address that. If you don't have the information, if you don't have the data, you're flying blind.
And I've been pushing that, and I've spoke to you about regional balance in the past as well. And obviously that work that you've done would correspond here. Are you intending to look at that type of work that you've done in that survey to advise the Minister that he should do that type of work here in order to actually be able to dig down in the data in Northern Ireland? I mean, there is a really stark difference between east-west here in Northern Ireland. We know that, but we are lacking some key features of data in around the quality of jobs. And we're not talking quantity here, we're talking quantity as well, but quality. And I think that piece of work needs to be done as well in order to inform the data. And then the other wee bit that I want to kind of talk about, obviously the Minister is bringing forward an employment bill. And there's a lot of competing priorities in that employment bill. But what do you think could be some of the priority aspects of that bill in order to deliver regional balance in respect for good jobs and investment?
I have recommended in my advice to the department that we do need a bespoke survey to be able to get in-depth information and data on the quality of our jobs. As I said, though, I'm not here to speak on behalf of the department or to make that decision. That has been my recommendation, that we do need data and we do need a survey. Currently, the source of the data tends to come from the Labour Force Survey, which is a survey which does focus on job quantity or labour quantity or employment and economic activity rates. And we know the difficulties in whenever we're doing surveys in respondent burden. If we start to pile on set a whole bunch of questions into the labour force survey, it risks jeopardising that. So I do think we need a standalone survey to get in depth at this. The Working in Ireland survey had 47 different indicators of job quality. This is an expansive, multifaceted, complex area. Yeah. That doesn't mean that, whenever, you get the information or trying to distill it down, that you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on across 47 different indicators, because you can then break the data down in different ways and, pull it together so that it makes sense to, not just, to the user of the data or to the person that you're presenting it to. But I do think we need a bespoke survey to be able to look at these things. We had previously been a part of the UK Working Conditions Survey, which was part of the Eurostat survey. The sample for Northern Ireland was always too tiny to be able to do anything with it. So there has been, and I have been making this call since 2016, since this agenda for the need for data on this and to be able to actually analyse this. And similarly, the Carnegie Trust in their report, in the framing of this, back in 2017, I think that report was maybe 2018, they made the same call for, for detailed survey data. On the employment rights, the consultation is due to start at the start of July. What should be in there in respect to deliver regional balance? I think that what has been said in relation to the employment bill so far, this is about, making sure that the terms and conditions of employment are as best that they can be, and also about strengthening trade union rights. Both of those things will go a way to addressing the regional balance issue. So it is important that we take forward, the employment rights bill and include those things in it as we go through.
Right. What is your advice in relation to incentives or interventions, that could be made in order to support those regions that don't have good jobs?
So part of my advice to the department has situated kind of around 4 kind of key areas. It's about, I'll just summarise them first and then I'll go into the detail. More good jobs, improving our existing lot, raising the statutory floor, and then addressing equality, diversity and inclusion issues. So the regional balance bit sits within across all of that, in the sense that on the more good jobs bit, currently how the department has addressed that area until now has been about identifying priority sectors and growing them. It hasn't thought about how that links to the on the ground to the mapping of Northern Ireland. So I think there is a job of work that needs to be done to map our labour market and map the priority sectors and how it actually plays out in reality, and what is the growth strategy and what is a hands-on industrial policy. The second bit, in terms of improving our existing jobs, I think this is the bit that holds the most prospect in the short term for the regional balance bit. Policy has tended to ignore our existing lot. In terms of our existing jobs and our ability to seek to improve our existing jobs. So we look at statistics and we say, dairy is a low paid area or this is a low paid area, and we kind of go, what can we really do? Yeah. But we can seek to address this through policy. It might seem like a bit of a non-answer to say to me, but we don't actually have enough of the data to be able to do that across the piece. So you're talking about the Working in Ireland survey, and if you look at that paper and we can see where the dashboard, and we do it in a traffic light system, and what you can look at it in the regional bit, and you can say, look across all of the different aspects of a job, and you say, well, Strabhan's doing good on this, this and this. It really needs focus in and around the areas of, job security. How can policy really start to engage them with the industrial makeup of Strabhan, and to seek then to take serious those issues? But also making jobs better is about the the prospect which this Employment Rights Bill has in just raising the floor, in terms of raising the minimum statutory floor of working conditions across a whole suite of different aspects. I know that in the announcement yesterday there was part of the Employment Rights Bill will be to engage on, part of the consultation will be to engage on 0 hours contracts. So that's, in terms of job security on a regional basis, we know that there is regional issues when it comes to those to 0 hours contracts, for example. So that's a tangible way that you can seek to improve our existing laws through the statutory rights base. But then
Looking at the current legislation and trying to
build on it.
to build on
Yeah,
it.
to build on it.
Do you think it would require new legislation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to build. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Thank you for coming in for us and for the report and actually just defining that good jobs, and now we can move on and use the data to try and create jobs here. But in Northern Ireland, people stay, or the perception is anyway, that people stay in jobs much longer than anywhere kind of else in these islands. Why is that happening, or is that true? And does it happen more here than the other, in GB or the South?
As in people stay in permanent jobs much longer. So I should start by framing that a productive economy should seek to have people not, moving jobs, but not very often. So, jumping, constant kind of flux of jobs is not a good thing, but we do need people to move jobs. This is the way you diffuse knowledge and innovation across your economy and across different supply chains. What we have seen through the existing data is that Northern Ireland does have a high percentage of permanent jobs. That is a good thing. As in terms of the reasons why, I don't think there is an evidence base to have looked at that. Like, I haven't seen an evidence base as to why people stay in jobs much longer as compared to other regions. It might be something to look at.
So if you're saying that we do need people to move, that's the kind of bit, but we're kind of not. Is there a problem? Do we have a problem in the productivity of our economy then by people staying longer? Is that an issue, or?
Yeah, like the evidence base, the academic evidence base, which is asked for productivity improvements, we do want people, moving jobs. That's different from, them not having job security. They can have security and move jobs, but it is, something that will benefit our productive performance if we have this transfer of knowledge, as people build up human capital and then bring it on and share knowledge and share, as diffused across our economy. But as far as I understand, there has been no work to look at the specific case of Northern Ireland and why that isn't happening.
Well, and then just finally, just around kind of motivation of our workforce. People perform better if they're motivated. Do we have an issue here with motivation, or no?
How do you mean?
So, are people staying where they are? Is it comfortable? I'm trying to work out why we stay in, or why. My perception is people stay in a job far longer here than they do. Is it that they get to a point and then they stay and they just, they're not motivated to get more training to build up that capital, if you like. So we're not getting that. We're not training people in the same way that they are in other regions, so people then move on to other places, so that there's a kind of lack of motivation there's a motivation to stay comfortable, if you like, rather than
I don't think that I would suggest that Northern Ireland workers are any less motivated than workers in Donegal or workers in England. Like, I don't think that is the case, and I certainly don't think we have the evidence base to say that. But I do know that we do have an issue in skills and training. Whenever we look at the extent to which workers are being, having on-the-job training in their previous 3 months, the latest data shows that about 3.8% of workers receive that. Going back 15 years ago, that was twice that. We have experienced a downward trend in the proportion of workers who are receiving on-the-job training, and it's more than double that in the rest of the UK. So we have a need to take seriously the issue of training and career progression opportunities for workers, and we're not, on a comparative basis, we're not very good at providing career progression opportunities or career paths for workers. I don't think you can say that means that workers aren't motivated.
Yeah, I didn't mean motivated by the people. I meant by the opportunities they have. I didn't mean that people aren't motivated to go.
Yeah.
I mean that the opportunities aren't there because the training isn't. Or,
Yeah.
If you're trained and you take your capital and you move it on and you build, you create better. That's the bit I was trying to get. We're not doing, or there is a problem there that we're not providing the skills and training.
Yeah.
With,
My colleague Paul McFlynn has done work on this, and this kind of low skill, low productivity equilibrium, where we have this kind of tangential circle of keeping skills low, and then it's feeding low productivity, and you're stuck in this equilibrium. So that's the evidence base on that. On the kind of motivation bit, there is a strong literature though in terms of the link between good jobs and productivity, good jobs and health outcomes, good jobs and innovation. The literature is stronger on the relationship between bad or poor quality work and productivity. So there is a strong relationship between, if a worker is experiencing poor job quality, it does have an impact on the productivity performance of the company and the economy as a whole, but it also has a negative impact on terms of their health and mental health outcomes, and and that feeds back in the circle, and lots of this in terms of the literature base has got to do with the intensity of work, the demands of the work, the control of the work, your autonomy in your work, and the link that has to your motivation. Because if you experience a demand in work and constantly and really intense work, you have little control or autonomy over how you do your tasks, you're much more likely to experience burnout. And then not be as productive, as you could be. So it's about the organisation of your work, which is a real issue in terms of the outcomes that we're getting.
I think you love the work-life balance bit with Finn's as well. That's really important. So thanks, Phil. That's me.
Thank you, sir. Padraig?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks very much for the details so far. I really think that stuff on data is really exciting, and getting those measurable and quantifiable targets, as Sinead mentioned as well, I think are really key to actually building going forward. So it's something we've been asking for, and I think it's great to see that it's going to be carried out as well. Accessibility really was the point that I wanted to touch on. So further in higher education now, we're seeing a lot more progress towards access courses and allowing people to come in from various backgrounds, various skill sets into the workforce, and I think that that's positive. Like even from when I was at university compared to now, a lot more people are coming through access courses rather than your more traditional routes, and I think that's good. But the other thing then was actually around work-life balance. So my colleague Martina Anderson had brought forward a private members bill on this, which I've carried on as well. We've done a huge amount of work, and it's a priority for the department as well. Just wondering, you mentioned a couple of specifics on work-life balance, and I was wondering if you could maybe go into a wee bit more detail on those as well. And obviously that's going to be very hard to find much more quantifiable data for. So what are the other ways that can be assessed or measured to ensure that people, so one of the big things that we're hearing is, for example, people who are carers are struggling to access or to stay in the workforce as well. So how does that tie in? Are there any things that I suppose this committee or the department need to be doing to actually enable that to happen?
In terms of the measurement of the various different parts of work-life balance, so you have like the long working hours is kind of something that is objective, but you also have various different measures which exist in the psychological literature, which do provide constructs which have been tested and have been validated through things like factor analysis as concepts which we can get at through a series of questions, not asking workers, are you satisfied with, the extent to which you have work-life balance, but asking them specific things like, how often on a scale, whenever you get home from work, do you find it difficult to switch off? And there's a whole bunch of questions. We had included them in the Work in Ireland survey, this kind of, I think it was 4 questions in around the work-life conflict piece, which they then can bring together into a single indicator of like the work-life balance. So there is ways to get at these concepts, and it's not, this won't be, Northern Ireland doing it new. These exist in lots of other surveys, which exist across Europe and elsewhere. In terms of the work-life balance piece, in terms of accessibility, I see that piece as really being important. Going back to the equality, diversity and inclusion bit is really, really important for that. So what we know is that, as I said, that all jobs exist in a spectrum. Most jobs have some good and some bad. When we done the survey in the Republic of Ireland, what we found is that very few people have all of the poor quality across everything. Almost nobody do, have poor quality across everything. But we have almost nobody have all of the goods. So what we tend to find, even in the best quality jobs, they tend to be have work-life balance issues. They're what we termed greedy jobs. And this is a challenge that you can see, and we haven't obviously done the survey here, but I can see from looking at the relationship between working hours and even professional occupations within Northern Ireland, is that long working hours are a feature of professional and managerial occupations. They demand all of your time, and they're really intense jobs. That's a policy challenge in terms of an equality point of view, because they're really difficult then for women with children who do the predominant amount of caregiving. Obviously, it's for fathers as well, but mothers are the ones who are dominantly taking responsibility for childcare within the home. So it's a real difficulty then if the jobs which are of the best quality are greedy jobs. That in terms of accessibility of these and the inclusion aspects of those. And I've had really interesting engagements with various different stakeholders in this, and businesses on this issue, businesses who have sought to change this or sought to make changes in this or develop policies or even just look at it. So first of all, they had to audit and see what are we doing, and what they found was, oftentimes whenever people got to senior management, there were expectations of that they would turn up for a 8:30 meeting or 8 o'clock meeting, and that just wasn't possible for lots of mothers, because if they had kids, they school run and stuff. So there's a real challenge there for policy. And that's what I mean about a spectrum. At all points of this, we're going to be able to identify policy issues or policy challenges, but they won't be the same across the spectrum. And the issues will vary depending on what part of the spectrum that you lay at, or the issues that you might have to identify, or the issues that you'll go, even at the lowest end of the spectrum. We found in the Republic of Ireland study that there was two types of clusters of workers. There was the low-paid workers, but then there was workers who worked in precarious and intense jobs. The policy challenges for those two types of workers were different. But you wouldn't know that unless you have the data to be able to say, actually, the issues here aren't all going to be solved by increasing pay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important too, and the point that you've raised there about not viewing workers as a homogenous group, and actually looking at the differences across genders, across age, across professions, I think is vital to all of this as well. One of the issues which we come across was obviously just, as technology becomes more predominant, and people are, getting in touch via email, phone at all times as well, that it's going to be very difficult to, I suppose, implement policy for that as well. I think it's the critical time to actually try to do that, but to do it in the right way, and I suppose in a way that's flexible and that can keep up with where we're at, because we're probably at a stage at the moment where we're not keeping up with where our jobs are at or where our jobs are going. So it's trying to be ahead of that curve. I was just wondering, is that something that you have experienced, particularly around the technology piece? So people totally appreciate what you're saying about people being on for meetings for 8, 8:30 and stuff, but even the emails, evenings and stuff like that's something we're hearing a lot, just anecdotally, and I suppose from focus groups and stuff. Is that the predominant part of for a lot of jobs in terms of the work-life balance, or what are the key?
I think that will be a factor which affects a particular cohort of workers, probably those who work, in professional occupations, and those jobs which are more likely to have remote working as an opportunity. So I think that will be an issue, that kind of right to switch off, as how it's been framed in other places. And so yeah, it is coming through in terms of that. I do like, in terms of, as much as, flexibility is great, there is something good about the traditional structure of the working day, in terms of, where you're working when when you're not. And there's a risk in this kind of turn towards, sure, we're all flexible now, that, everybody's working all of the time, because it's really difficult to separate work and life, and, picking up your phone and having an email and just responding to that. And I'll just give you a personal example. Like, I've got 2 young kids myself, and, if somebody, my mother has said to me, sure, whenever they start school, then, you could just have them at school and then not have childcare afterwards. And then whenever you get them to bed, then sure, you could go back and finish your work then, because, your work's really flexible. And it's like, what does that actually mean for the worker? What does that actually mean for me? It means that, you're constantly on. And there's something really good about the structure of the working day, which stops that from happening. So, flexibility is good, but I think when we talk about flexibility has been the theme of so many different conferences in Northern Ireland recently and over the past number of years. But I think that lots of times everybody in the room is talking about different notions of flexibility. Flexibility in your job is, could be from something as simple as, I'm at work, but I need to run to the chemist to get a script. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Or flexibility could be flexi time, either end of the workday. Flexibility could be, working total of 5 days over 4. There's so many different versions of flexibility, but we don't have any sense of an agreement, and this conversation is happening in such a vague way that I think we do need to get to the nut of what we mean when we're talking about flexible work.
Doug, anything?
Yes. Lisa, thank you. This is my first day in the Economy Committee. That's the first presentation I've had. I find it absolutely fascinating. I mean, genuinely fascinating. And I'm doing a bit of catch up here. And I'm just looking at the Carnegie framework, which I didn't know, but I'm seeing it now, and it's really interesting. Look, I'm a great believer in lifelong learning. And I think sometimes when we look at low-skilled or semi-skilled workers, we say, look, that's your lot, and there's no more lifelong learning. We do the on-the-job training, and you've said that's been reduced down to about 3.8%. That's scandalous. But that on-the-job training will still look at that low-skilled or semi-skilled output. How do we drive companies to do personal development? So it's not about the job that they're doing, but developing the person so that the person can reach beyond where they are at that moment in time, particularly when we talk about job security as one of those key issues. And if that job isn't secure and the individual is worried, and they're worried that if they lose that job, they can only ever look for the similar low-skilled or semi-skilled job elsewhere. But so how do we raise their bar for them, the people, by lifelong learning through a personal development program? Is that something we could look at or should look at?
Definitely. As I have engaged with lots of different businesses and business lobbies since taking up the post as independent expert, I have been surprised by the knowledge gap in what does that mean? What does investing in people mean? They all want to do it. There is, a bit of how. I think government can play a key role in that. So what can government do to support the creation of good jobs? Government doesn't create jobs, it's businesses or whatever. But government can play a key role in providing the knowledge base and the business supports to businesses as to what that means. What does investing in people actually mean or look like? What's the kinds of things? So even having that conceptual framework, now a business can look to that and say, these are the sorts of things that if I want to be a good employer, that I need to be engaged with or I need to be interested in. So it's a real tangible improvement to what we had the day before yesterday. But lifelong learning is really a serious issue in terms of our productivity performance. If we don't take serious the provision of skills through people's lives, particularly as we face like the decarbonisation agenda, if we don't take seriously how we transition workers through various different changes, which will come, be it technology or the climate change crisis, or be, you know, whatever the issue might be, and take seriously that issue of how do we transition people. And transitioning people often means investing in people, and that often means investing in their skills and their retraining. One of the things that I had said to the department when I first took post, whenever I sat down with them and looked across the various different policies in terms of skills, was that what a lot of the skills policy tends to be is at the start of so it's developing apprenticeships or developing that kind of beginning skills. We're not looking at all about that lifelong learning piece or that career progression piece, the skills piece through a person's career, and how government can take that seriously. I do think over the long run of things, particularly since the financial crisis, both government and businesses have had a failure in terms of their need to invest in this and see the importance of it. So they can, they need to do more of that. The example that I took, and I'm developing a kind of case study around, is in the issue of welding. So we hear constantly from manufacturing lobby groups and within industry and within businesses within the manufacturing sector that welding is a real skill shortage. It's in every different report that is produced, and so. But then, if you go back to look at what the policy has been utilised to address, and skilled welders is the shortage. So the issue is skilled welders. What we've done is develop apprenticeships for welders. That's bringing people in at the start of their career. If you look at the extent to which welders are getting training through their life, or getting coding skills, or kind of developing that, which costs money and is investment into people. That has fallen off. We need to get better at doing that again.
And I think if I could follow up, I think in many ways that investors in people stamp that people say, look, we're an investor in people. I think it needs to be renewed in many ways. I think people have lost sight of what that actually means. It's about people. It's about personal development. It's about lifelong learning. And I looked at sectors which are incredibly important, like the caring sector. You look at that and you say, what are they actually doing to invest in those people to help them improve or look beyond that? And it is so high intensity for those carers, I think, who are low paid, so don't fall into that good job tag, but they're an essential job, and it is an important job. But if we don't invest in them, they will never be able to improve their lives. So I think that investing in people tag needs to be renewed. I remember when it came out. I'm not old, but look, I think now we're at that stage now where people are using it as just we're an investor in people without really delving into what it actually means.
100%, like within the childcare bit or even the broader social care bit, if we don't address the childcare strategy with taking seriously that a fundamental part of delivering any childcare policy requires an investment in the childcare workers, it will fail, because we know that sector is facing such issues of the retention, bringing people in, people leaving it because of the intensity of work, because of the demands placed on them. Because of the pay, because of the progression opportunities. So we do need to take seriously all of those things and recognise that any childcare policy or any social care policy, it's about the people, and we need to invest in those. And it goes back to that kind of point, the regional balance point that you made. Like, so many of our regions which aren't Belfast depend so much on our foundational economy, that part of it. And if we don't invest in our foundational economy and invest in the people in it, and we are going to be continuing to face the issues that we face.
And Sinead, do you want to come back in there?
Yeah, I would want to sit all day with Lisa because I have so many things to ask her. Yeah, but I suppose, I'm back to the Women in Ireland, or the Working in Ireland survey, and I'm particularly interested in some of the findings regarding women. So 11 out of the 14 subdivisions that you looked at, women fared less than men in relation to quality jobs. And that's not surprising. And we've talked about childcare and social care and those caring professions, and that But we also have to dig down deep, and you've just referred to it there now, Lisa, just where those jobs are, that women are engaged in those sectors as well, because there's a regional aspect of that, as you said, that core economy piece. And if there was a survey of a similar nature, in order for us to gather that data, I think it's really important that we look at gender, and that we look at the differentiation in age as well, because our young people fare really badly at it as well, but also our older workers sometimes get lost in this good, having good quality jobs. At some point in their careers, they become kind of, invisible in a way. So I think that we have to really, if we're doing data, we have to look at the gender gap and how we close that, and what interventions and policy. All of this is about gathering data to make interventions and changing outcomes for people and their productivity level. So I think it's really important that we look at all aspects of even like the Section 75. If you're doing any type of in-depth gathering of data, we have to look at that nature as well. And also just trade unions. Trade unions have pushed good jobs from the beginning of time, really. They've fought for workers' rights. Do you feel that they have a really important role to the development of good jobs?
Lots of different issues there, but on the gender first, and the age, I suppose. So gender is a really important part of good jobs, but gender is really confounded by the full-time, part-time thing. Yes. So there's a big relationship between differences in job quality for full-time and part-time workers, and it's a real issue then for women, because more women are much more likely to work part-time, particularly mothers. And what we see in the Working in Ireland survey, or what we see in other work that I had done in looking at part-time job quality in Northern Ireland, is that it tends to be poorer quality and those kind of extrinsic characteristics. So, the pay, the opportunities for career progression, your opportunities to get skills. So oftentimes we say part-time workers, get paid less because they've got less human capital accumulation. If that is confounded by the fact that they're also not getting opportunities for career progression, or they're less likely to get skills and training, their human capital accumulation is going to be, less so again. Mm-hmm. So it's, these things are confounding onto each other, and we can't, just say us part-time, part-time, so that there's different there's different things that we can do to address that. On the kind of age bit and the lower age profile, I was speaking about this yesterday actually, as it related to the Just Transition agenda and the decarbonisation agenda. So what we know is that with this agenda, with any transition, there is vulnerable groups. We know that there is risks, that there will be winners and losers in this as we progress to a decarbonised economy. If we don't take seriously that the transition has to take, has to understand who the vulnerable people is, mm-hmm. And take that seriously. And I think there's a real issue, there's a real risk that if we don't look at who the vulnerable groups are, that they'll fall onto the economic and activity pile, because we haven't engaged in the lifelong learning piece, or we haven't engaged in the reskilling piece, and then we'll suddenly go, well, why is economic and activity high amongst older workers? Because we haven't been engaging on the things that's going to keep people in the workforce and develop them and make sure that they have opportunities at various different parts. And that brings back then to the mothers is what we see. So what we see is gender equality issues starting to take a hold into the labour market, and females and males are performing almost comparatively until the point that women have children. After that, there's a complete fall off, and differences start to emerge through that, and we need to to address why why, after somebody has children, that they can't engage in the labour market, and that's about inclusivity and about the ability for labour market to provide for them. And in relation to the trade unions having a key role in the Employment Rights Bill. So the LRA yesterday published research which is looking at the business case for good jobs. So, there is reasons, there is the evidence base there to show that good jobs are a driver of productivity. There's evidence base there to show that good jobs, maintain health, but poor quality jobs have a negative impact on health. The evidence base also is there to show that where trade unions are, good jobs are about the interplay of businesses, government and workers engaging in a dialogue about, how these things work. Trade unions play a central role in providing that representation voice on behalf of workers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
As I say, Dr. Wilson, we could have kept you all day, but that was really, really useful and enlightening. Thank you for your public service. It's really, really, really invaluable, and I'm sure the committee in the coming months will be keen to engage with you again. So thank you so much for your time and expertise. Peter.
So, Chair, just to remind members that in correspondence last week, the Department advised that there would be a consultation on an employment bill which will launch very shortly in early July. The announcement that Dr. Wilson was referring to is on the Labour Relations Agency website, not on the Department, so I didn't see that, but I've sent that round to members so they can see it for themselves. And there's also, I'll send you around a link to the Carnegie framework as well, because there's some research on that. So is it the case, perhaps, Chairperson, that the committee wants to write to the department, just ask for confirmation in respect of the adoption of the Carnegie framework and maybe the timescale for the detailed survey data, and maybe seeking an assurance that will take into account things like gender, age, sub-regions, the part-time, full-time mix, and perhaps ask the Minister maybe to talk about it next week when he comes along to see the committee?
Chair, also, can we ask, are the Department planning an all Northern Ireland survey on a similar basis to the survey that's taken place in working for Ireland, working in Ireland?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes, no, please. I just would be useful to try and get confirmation from that. This is obviously a key pillar of the Minister's economic vision, and I would have assumed he may have wished to inform the committee or the House that this is the manner in which he's approaching this. Obviously, as a committee, we have made clear to the Minister and the Permanent Secretary previously that we would prefer that announcements were made through the appropriate channels, and we'll support him in doing that. This is important work that he's doing, and he'll have our support. Needs to be a two-way street in that front.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I was a bit blindsided there, just on that announcement yesterday. I wasn't aware of it.
Okay. Yeah, that's agreed. We then move to item 7, members, which is technology clusters consultation. I would advise members that the Department has provided a written briefing on the response to its consultation on 10X technology clusters. I'll also refer members to the departmental briefing at page 179 and the consultation document at 185. At 195, the Department makes some reference to sub-regional plans. Is the committee content to note the written papers pending a further oral briefing on the technology sectoral plans, which are to be published shortly? We've requested that briefing already.
We'll have, Chairperson.
Members content then that we have an oral briefing on that? Okay, item 8 then, delegated legislation, SR 24128. Refer member to the Clerk's copy note at page 199. The department has led an SR 2024-128, the Further Education Student Support Amendment Regulations Northern Ireland 2024. The committee considered the related SL1 on the 8th of May and had no objection to the policy proposal. The rule matches similar provisions in England, which reflects changes made by UKG in respect of immigration policy. The rule will enhance eligibility for overseas students in respect of home fee status for further education, such that students only need to be resident on the first day of their course rather than the start of term. The proposed rule will also extend eligibility to certain other overseas student groups which are listed in the covering note. Members have any questions on this SR? If not, then I put the following motion to the committee: that the Committee for the Economy has considered SR 2024-128, the Further Education Student Support Amendment Regulation Northern Ireland 2022, and subject to the Examiner of Statutory Rule has no objection to the rule.
Sorry, Chairperson, it's 2024, of course. Sorry, that's my mistake in the Chair's brief.
Yep. I'll read again. That the Committee for the Economy has considered SR 2024-128, the Further Education Student Support Amendment Regulations Northern Ireland 2024, and subject to the Examiner of Statutory Rules has no objection to the rule. Are members agreed?
Members, are you agreed?
Agreed.
Sorry.
Item 9 then, SL1, you refer members to page 218 of your packs. The department intends to lay a statutory rule in respect of student support and student fees. The proposed rule is subject to negative resolution procedure and would come into operation for the commencement of the 24-25 academic year. Like the previous statutory rule, the proposed rule refers to eligibility for home fee status and matches similar provisions in England in respect of immigration policy. The proposed rule will extend eligibility for some other immigrant groups as set out in the clerk's covering note. The proposed rule will also enhance eligibility for home fee status for further education, modifying the residency requirement such that students only need to be resident during their course rather than the first day of teaching. If members are content with that, are we happy to inform the department that we are content with the proposed rule? Members are content.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving then to SL1, Student Support Ukraine Permissions. The department intends to lay another statutory rule in respect of student support and student fees. The proposed rule would be subject to negative resolution procedure and again would come into operation for the 24-25 academic year. The proposed rule appears to match similar provision in the rest of the UK in respect of immigration policy and access to home fee student status. The proposed rule will add an additional group, i.e. those who have been granted leave to remain under a new Home Office scheme, the Ukrainian Permission Extension Scheme. Members have any questions on that? If they don't, are members content that we inform the department that we're content with the proposed rule? Content?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, we then move to item 11, Industrial Training Levy. The department intends to lay a statutory rule, the Industrial Training Levy Construction Industry Order Northern Ireland 2024. The rule will be subject to negative resolution procedure and will come into effect on the 31st of August 2024. The proposed rule would set the industrial levy at 0.55%, which is paid by construction firms with earnings of over £80,000 in order to fund the Construction Industry Training Board. The levy applies in 2023-2024. The committee passed a similar bill previously in respect of 2022-2023. The level of the levy is unchanged. Remember, and you have a declaration of interest. Yep. As per your previous. Yes, of course, no problem. Are members content with that?
Yep.
Content, thank you. Okay, moving to correspondence then. Members, first of all, take item 2. Members are asked to consider the departmental response in respect of the Financial Provisions Bill. The Department of Finance is to introduce the legislation, but some of the provisions are owned by the Department for the Economy. A consultation is shortly expected, and DFE appears to be seeking to brief the relevant provisions in September. Are members content to note the response and schedule a briefing in September?
Yep.
Content, thank you. Item 3, members are asked to note a departmental response relating to the tourism strategy. The department advises that the Tourism Partnership Board has not been established, nor has the terms of reference been agreed. Similarly, the 10-year action plan has not been agreed, but it will likely include the extension of Fulshire Ireland brands to Northern Ireland following an audit of the Causeway coastal route. An events framework, a skills action plan, incentivising hotel development and the promotion of political tourism. NISRA is to publish more tourism statistics later later this year. So yesterday the Minister didn't quite get finishing his response to the debate, but has said that he will shortly be appointing people to the Partnership Board, and that he would keep us informed on that. I do wonder though what the Minister is defining as political tourism. Obviously that would be something that we want to ensure is not controversial for anyone on any side of any argument in relation to the contested past of Northern Ireland. So it might be useful if the committee could get some further details on what the department means by political tourism, if members are content.
So you noting it down there,
Yeah.
Philip?
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, he didn't get to answer that question, but I think just for transparency, we need to know what his thinking is in terms of the appointments to that partnership board.
Yep.
Absolutely agree.
Is that agreed?
Agreed, members?
Members?
Agreed?
Yeah.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. No, don't worry. I'll take it as a sign of acclamation. Item 4 then, members, at page 255, members are asked just to know correspondence from the department in relation to carbon border adjustment mechanisms. Are we content to note, members?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 5, members are asked to know correspondence to committee queries on the budget. The department provides confirmation that the AME renewable budget is spent solely on RHI, information on McGee funding, with the task force due to publish its action plan before the end of this year, and an explanation in respect of skills and FE funding. We have do we have a date for the task force coming to us?
I think the plan is that we'll meet with the task force on the 18th of September when the committee is in Foyle.
Okay.
Sinead.
Can I ask just a question, Chair?
Yes.
We obviously asked for more information in relation to the budget, particularly the 4.1 million for McGee. At this stage, I want to know the details in relation to the student numbers, the new student numbers that are expected in 25-24. Are they from existing Mazen? Are they new Mazen? How many students are they? What subjects will they be studying? And is it an expansion of existing courses, or is it new courses? Those are all really fundamental questions, because these students supposedly are coming in the 24-25 academic year, because if they don't come in then the next entrance is 25-26. So we're expecting student numbers, and 4.1 million should be up to about 500 new students should be coming into McGee in September. And I don't know where is it new Mazen, old Mazen, moving students, what is it? And we still haven't got any of that clarity. The Minister keeps telling us that he's working with Ulster University in relation to that plan. But time is of the essence, and I'm sure the work is going on, and there will be maybe 500 new students coming in. But if they're not, if we don't have the detail, it's kind of like we're working in a vacuum. We've got the budget, we know it's resource, it's around teaching, so it must be students. So we've been constantly asking that, and I'm asking it in ether really, and getting kind of just answers. Yeah, we're working with Ulster University and around that. So I'd just like to know who are the students and what are they going to be studying.
Like the department in those terms, and maybe ask the Minister to be here next week, and so we can queue him up and maybe we'll give an answer verbally as well. Okay, that's agreed.
Agreed.
Members, is that agreed?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Page 6, item 6, members are asked to consider correspondence from the Finance Committee seeking feedback on departmental briefing in respect of the budget. Is the committee content to respond indicating the briefing we received? Members content?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Item 7, members are asked to consider correspondence from the Finance Committee indicating that an interim public sector transformation board has been established and the departments have submitted transformation plans. Funding for these may be announced in the October monitoring round. Are members content that we write to DFE seeking sight of their transformation plans? Yep, thank you. Item 8, members are asked to know correspondence from the Minister for Communities on the role of the utility regulator. Are members content to note?
Yeah.
Thank you. Item 9, members are asked to note high-level response to committee queries from the department in respect of childminding provision. Members content to note and to forward to NICMA.
Yep.
Thank you. Item 10, members are asked to note confirmation of the Department for Community Support for different training pathways for childminding. Members content to forward to NICMA. Thank you. Item 11, members are asked to note response in respect of the non-standard emergency accommodation from the Communities Minister. Members content to note. Thank you. Item 12, members are asked to note correspondence confirming that Professor Helen McCarthy has been appointed as the Chief Scientific and Technology Advisor. Members content to note. Thank you. Item 13, members are asked to note a letter of thanks in respect of the joint committee meeting from the Education Committee. Members content to note. Thank you. Item 14, members are asked to note a letter of thanks in respect to the joint concurrent meeting from the Youth Assembly. Members content to note. Thank you. Members are asked to consider response to committee suggestions that university capital expenditure be included in the monthly capital reports. ISNI indicates that the exclusion of this information was a decision by DFE, and the next board project is underway in respect of monitoring capital projects. So the committee content that we contact the department to ask that university capital expenditure is also shared with ISNI and correspondence with other statutory committees. Thank you. Item 16, members are asked to note response in respect of the arbitration bill. Members, are we content to forward these correspondence to the Justice Committee? Thank you. Item 17, members are asked to consider response from the Association of British Insurers indicating that members don't collect information by jurisdiction in respect of motor insurance premium paid. ABI indicates that this information is not collected by jurisdiction. Comparisons of costs and claims versus costs of premiums between Northern Ireland and Scotland cannot be made. Members are also asked to consider table correspondence from the FCA, which advises if the information was actually collected, then ABI could likely share this with the committee in confidence. ABI is also seeking a joint evidence session with the Committee for Justice on higher legal costs in Northern Ireland. ABI also indicated that it is to meet with some of the North West MLAs in respect of postcode premium variations. Have you received anything?
No, haven't received anything yet. No.
Okay. All right. Well, that being the case, Chair, I'll go back to ABI because they've indicated they contacted yourself and Mr. Delargy. So no.
Well, I'll check it out with my office because
Okay.
I've had a member of staff on holiday, unless it's fallen between.
Okay. It's just if they haven't, I'll go back to them and
Right,
I'll arrange something. But
I'll
if they have, I'll stay out
I'll
of it. if that's
contact you
okay.
after this meeting and just so that you know. But I'm not aware of anything on my
Okay.
diary at the minute.
Are members content to forward correspondence to Justice? Thank you. Item 18, members are asked to note correspondence from Airgrid advising that the North-South Interconnector construction will commence in the Republic of Ireland in Q2 25 with project completion by Q2 28 rather than in 27. Are members content to note? Thank you. Members are asked to consider an invitation to the chairperson to attend the Farnborough International Air Show, including the Northern Ireland reception on the 23rd of July 2024. Are members content if I consider this invitation?
Diary permitting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Item 13 then, draft forward work plan. Peter.
So members, if you look at the forward work plan, last meeting is next week when we are anticipating speaking to the Minister. Then after that we have a planning session on the 4th of September. I think Sony would like to do an informal session with members, if that's okay. That shouldn't be too long, just telling us about grid issues and interconnection and all that good stuff, if that's okay. On the 11th of September then, the plan would be that we would get the Skills Council to talk about their survey. They want to talk about more general stuff. Additionally, the department wants to come along and talk about the Financial Provisions Bill. And hopefully we would then see the sectoral plans for these different technology clusters, which would hopefully be about that time. On the 18th of September, that's when we're in Foyle. So we have Northern and Western Regional Assembly, North West Strategic Growth Partnership, no problem. McGee Expansion Task Force, no problem. Tourism Ireland and Tourism NI have now cancelled. They say they have a meeting that day. So if we are content to not take them as part of that on the 18th of September and maybe catch up with them later when the Tourism Partnership Board is in place, and they may have more to say then about the 10-year action plan. So if members are content to leave the agenda a little bit shorter, which might suit better because we've got a few other things to do that day.
Go later, give us time to get there. Is it?
Well, yes, there's that.
I think we should start early.
So if members are content with that,
Yep.
and you'll note also that we're pretty much full up until Halloween. So there will be a few other things to fill in there. So we'll have a nice planning session the 4th September. You tell me what you want. But we've got lots of stuff anyway to keep us entertained until Halloween for sure. So if members are content with the forward work programme as amended, Chairperson.
Agreed, members?
Yeah, great.
No problem. Are there any other relevant business, members? No, if not, then next week we have the Minister. And that'll be our last meeting before recess.
That's the plan.
No problem at all. Members, thank you very much for your attendance.
Committee Room 30, Sound.